Welcome to Real Women's Stories. I absolutely love this topic on today's episode because it goes into the psychology of decluttering our house. Because for me, that means I'm decluttering my mind, and it kind of gives me clarity. We talk about how we can navigate change and how we perceive ourselves in change and other people's perception about us when we do make changes in our lives.
You know, life is busy, things are getting chucked into it. It might be a cupboard, or it could be like a garage or a spare room. And I hear people quite often, they're saying that they just feel too overwhelmed to even to begin that project.
Decluttering, to be honest with you, sounds like the most laborious job, right? This episode is not just about that. This episode is about having emotional attachments to certain things. So I'm going to ask you a question. Is there one thing that you have got an emotional attachment to, and is it serving you? Because this episode will give you the insights and the practices and the tools to work that out.
I think when you're really kind of grappling with letting an item go, like you could always find a use for something like one day. It's really like weighing up that decision of, is it useful now? Is it serving me now? Or actually, can it go?
This is Real Women's Stories. My guest today is called Christal, and I met Christal because we are both embarking on enhancing my coaching skills. And Christal and I were put into a group together. And when we do our coaching training, we have to bring, an issue to the table, a challenge to the table that we have to coach people on. And when Christal told me that she helps people declutter houses, and that the reason why she's doing the course is because she really wants to delve into the psychology of, why we have these attachments to certain objects in our house, so that she can further help her clients. And when Christal told me about what she did, it kind of triggered me a little bit, because I've got to start decluttering my house, because I'm making my transition over to Spain. I'm upsizing in Spain and I'm downsizing in the UK. And how on earth am I going to start decluttering my house? And how on earth am I going to start making decisions about what things I keep and what things I throw away and what things I may want to give to charity? And so it got me thinking that I really wanted to bring Christal onto this podcast to talk about her story, why she started her business, and the psychology behind how we can let go of these items that we may have, and what sort of emotional attachments that we may have, and how we can make changes in our lives that aren't so overwhelming about letting go of certain things. Hey, Christal, you okay?
I'm great, Lisa. Thank you. So good to see you.
So I saw your page on Instagram, and I was really intrigued to find out more about what you were doing, because from what I gather, it's about decluttering our houses. And I'm really, my kids drive me mad. My husband drives me mad. Everything on the outside looks clean and tidy, but suddenly you open this cupboard and it's just like everything falls out. And for me, that emotionally stresses me out. And they sort of look at me and laugh and think, why are you getting so stressed out all the time? It's just the cupboard. What's wrong with it? And I'm like, look, if that cupboard's a mess, that's how my mind feels. If I've got any kind of overwhelm or anxiety, that's how I feel. So could you explain to me a little bit about, and obviously the listeners, what it is you do?
So my business is called Organiser Manchester. I'm based in South Manchester, and I help people, like you've explained there, really sort of take control of their homes and feel empowered in their homes, because it can be a whole different, plethora of reasons why people might contact me. So obviously you've explained you have these cupboards where things probably get thrown in because, life gets so busy, doesn't it? And for some people, it's just not something that it's maybe not their favorite thing. or they might enjoy it, but they've just got busy lives with work and family and their own interests. So things will often just get pushed into a cupboard, out of sight, out of mind. But like you say, it can sort of wear away at you and like be in the back of your mind. So that would be one scenario where I would go and help people. But other situations as well might be when people find it really, really hard to actually let go of things.
Can you describe to me what some of your clients, I guess, homes look like before you work with them, and then what happens during the transitional period?
It can be so different, but if we take someone maybe in a similar situation to you who says, you know, life is busy, things are getting chucked into it. It might be a cupboard, or it could be like a garage or a spare room. And I hear people quite often, they're saying that they just feel too overwhelmed to even to begin that project. So I think by sort of working together, it gives people that allocated time to actually do it. So we might look at doing a session of sort of around 4 hours. I usually suggest is a sweet spot, because it gets quite a lot done, but before that decision fatigue sets in. So if it's a case of sort of decluttering, I would have to work really closely with the client, because obviously they need to make the decision. I can't tell anyone what they should or shouldn't throw away, but it's enabling that space to do it. Recently, when I was with a client, they'd said like they'd tried to do it before with friends and family, but they found it really hard. And just having like me by their side, guiding them, just enabled them to make those decisions much more, and giving them the space to talk about things. And I think often when I go into people's homes, there is sort of often shame and embarrassment attached to that clutter as well. But once somebody's made the decision, we can get through some stuff, you know, and then it can make such a difference. It can enable people to get on with their lives, because actually it really can sap your energy. It can really hold people back, I feel, from lots of different things. And that can obviously have a big impact on how you feel about yourself and your own mental health.
What kind of stories do you hear? Because this is about real women's stories. And behind an object that somebody has in their cupboard, there must be stories that are created as to why they're hanging on to that particular item or object.
If we're dealing with maybe slightly going towards like a hoarding tendency, a lot of the stories that people have got around that is that they don't like waste. So people feel that it would be wasteful to declutter that item. And that might be like a waste of the money that they've already spent on it, or it might be a waste that it might be useful one day. But I think when you're really kind of grappling with letting an item go, like you could always find a use for something like one day. If you thought about any item, you could always think of something. So I really challenge my clients to think about, well, is it useful now, and is it serving you in your life now? Because if not, it potentially needs to, they need to decide whether to keep it or not. Because if that isn't really aligned with their goal of maybe being able to invite friends round, but they can't because the house, they feel it's too cluttered or disorganized, it's really like weighing up that decision of, is it useful now? Is it serving me now? Or actually, can it go? And the other thing is, the thing about waste, like I don't want it to go to landfill, or I need to pass it on to a friend. So some people really find it hard just to say it can go to charity. They want to know where that item is actually going to a person who they know. So it's always like a challenge of working around that, because actually the goal is to get the items out of the house when it's very, going toward like a hoarded house and very disorganized. You want to get as much out of there as possible to start to see some results, but you're always working with the client.
Do you feel though that a lot of people are attached to things for what they think is an emotion, like an emotional attachment, but actually underlying it could be something else? It's like, why do people feel that they have to keep hold of things? I'm one of those people that if I'm not using this now, it needs to go. And I'm thinking, it's just got me thinking about the psychology of it all, because I'm somebody that likes to move on. I'm constantly moving on and moving, and I'm quite a quick person. People always say, at least you get 100
Mhm.
miles an hour. So is that aligned with my personality in some way, in some emotion that says I don't hoard things because I need to get rid of things that don't serve me so I can then make room for something else? And that somebody that's hoarding, is there some kind of emotional potential trauma that they have maybe been through that creates that attachment, and that they find it very hard to detach themselves from that item or from anything in the house?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And obviously I'm not a trained therapist, but I do
Yeah.
take extra care with my clients to listen to their stories and see what's going on for them and see what presents itself as we do go through each item. And it's quite a vulnerable and intimate space in those situations. So yeah, I'm always like listening to what is going on, and quite often for clients who find it hard to let go of things, it's challenging the beliefs that they've had. Maybe there's all different stories. So sometimes it was when they were a child, their parents got frustrated with them for being a messy child and therefore overhauled their bedroom and threw away lots of items. And that has created a trauma for that individual. So that's something that could come up. Or also a scarcity sort of mindset. So maybe people didn't have, a client might not have had very much when they were growing up. And that's then led to them sort of collecting items and not wanting to let them go. And that's where that sort of waste theme can come in, not wanting to waste things as well. Working with clients like that, it can be quite a slow process. And each session, we would be, sort of working on those muscles of decluttering and slowly building on it, and obviously building up a lot of trust as well, and just taking time to listen to those clients. But then at the other end of the scale, Lisa, I'll work with clients like you, who we could do like a whole room transformation in a day. I've had clients where they're like, get rid of it. Oh, I hate that. It's disgusting. Boom, boom, boom. And we're filling up bin bags full of stuff, and it can, go straight to the charity. And that, that's brilliant, because you get that very clear before and after, and you get like these great transformation of a room. So it's like, it's from one end of that spectrum to the other, and everything in between, really.
I'd like to go back a bit, because I've kind of got an idea of, I have got an idea about the business. I have got an idea about what it is you do. What was your life like when you were younger? Describe to me what your home life was like. Was it cluttered? Was it
Yeah.
hoardy? What was Christal's life like growing up? And also, what was your room like growing up?
The house was pretty, it wasn't hoarded, but I think a little chaotic and lacking organization, I would say, but not in an extreme level. But
Mhm.
I always liked to tidy the kitchen. Like, that's just what I always liked to do from quite a young age. So I remember being even sort of 8 years old, I'd have a friend round and we'd say, we'll create a lunch for the parents, and we'd serve them like their lunch. And then, like, so all the food prep and the tidying up after, like, we just did all of that. But then as I got into more like teenage years, I would always just sort of go around the kitchen and reorganize it and tidy it. And if I had friends coming over, I would just kind of do that, or we'd sit in the kitchen and I'd sort of potter around doing that, even in those teenage years. And it's just something I've really, really always enjoyed doing. I find it quite therapeutic, to be honest. So yeah, my room, I would always enjoy sort of keeping it nice and having that space. And I think that's the other thing. I really enjoy it, and I find it quite relaxing to do when I have the time to do it for myself. And some of my clients will say that they do quite enjoy it, but again, it's this time factor. But then also I have other clients who either don't enjoy it, or like their mind doesn't work in that way. So they're just not sure where best to put things. So that's an interesting one. And I revisited a client just last week, and they've just had this fabulous sort of kitchen renovation done. I'd worked with that client before the renovation to help declutter. And she said that I'd really helped change her mindset of not hanging on to things. So once that decision had been made, rather than just shoving it in the cupboard or putting it in the garage, she was like, that's what was happening before. But since we've worked together, she's now able to say, I've made the decision, it's gone, and actually make an exit plan to get it out of the house. But she got me back because she just said she couldn't quite work out the best place for things. So that's something that comes up a lot as well, is just helping some people whose minds don't necessarily work in that way to think where logical is it going to be most effective and functional to work for them.
How do you deal with kids? Now, I've got messy teenagers, although are they messy? Well, I've trained them not to be messy because they know that I go completely crazy. I'm one of those mums where, you know, they come to me with big issues and we talk, but if they keep things in a mess, I go mental. I can't handle it. It's like shoes by the front door. And I think I saw this thing on Instagram where someone, it was a psychologist that said, if you leave shoes by the front door, it's actually bad luck. It's bad karma to leave shoes. It's like, there's a shoe cupboard. Why can't you walk past the shoe cupboard? Why can't you just put your shoes in the damn cupboard? Every day, my daughter, she has to leave her sliders at the front door, the back door, the keys on the side, where she won't put them in the key box. So how do we deal with that? Because if we're kind of trying to declutter our house, but yet we have other people in our house, do you work with families or do you just work one-on-one?
No, so usually I would work in a family home, but usually it would be with one person from that family that would be leading on that. So usually, one of the parents. Usually it is the woman in the household, but not always. So I think if I was looking in a big family, in a family setting, the first thing that I would always be sort of looking at and speaking to my client about is the quantity of items in there. So obviously you're accommodating for everybody's needs, but if there is like this overwhelming amount of stuff for each person, because let's face it, these days we're absolutely bombarded with items and we're being sold things all the time. So the first thing I would be looking at in that situation is sort of decluttering, because if you've got this abundance of like clothing, shoes, it does all pile up, but also it's easier to just like leave the shoe, some shoes by the door, but there's some shoes in the shoe cupboard, and they just pile up and pile up. And I think that can also, like in that family setting, put other pressures on people, because it sort of impacts like the laundry, for example, because if you've got lots of clothes, it enables those like teenagers in the household to let their clothes pile up in a dirty heap in their bedroom, because they can still get more out of the wardrobe. And then it impacts on whoever's doing the laundry, because they're getting more and more to do. So that can be like a really crucial part to really assess what is in the house, to see the quantity of things. And then we'd be looking at the systems to sort of make it work. Now, it sounds like in your setting, you've got the systems. So you've got the place for the shoes, you've got the place for the keys, and then people are choosing not to use them.
Yeah. And I guess, I try and say to my kids, listen, when you've got your house, you can leave your house in whatever state you want. But when it's my house, I can't. All I'm asking for is things to just be put away. Or, my grandma was amazing. She was always the one. She taught me how to organize. I think that's why I'm so organized in what I do, because everything has a place. Everything should have a place. So when you use it, you wash it up, you put it back. You use a pair of shoes, like I've got in my cupboard, I've got shoe boxes. So I know that if I go out on a night out and I wear a particular pair of shoes, I feel like I've got OCD here, but I always put my shoes back in the shoe box, not necessarily in exactly the same place. But I do that. But going back to what you said when you were younger about you enjoyed tidying up and things like that, I used to literally organize my mum's cupboards and her kitchen. I was a real kitchen thing, and I would clean her hobs.
Mm,
I'd be like, "Mum, how can you like anything that was do you remember the old gas hobs where you have to take everything apart and wash it all?" I would just have great
yeah,
pleasure in taking it all apart and putting it back and washing it. And then I'd go through her cupboards and organize all her glasses in the same row and all the tin cans, and they all had to face the right way. And at that point, I thought, have I actually
I
got a
love it.
problem? Because for me, though, I thought it just helped whatever madness was going on in my life when I was a teenager and I was young, and there was a lot of stuff for me going on. It was my safe space. It made me feel
Mm,
that something was in order, that life was in order. And that's what I feel like with a tidy house, that when you open a door to your home, because your home is your heart and your soul. Like the streets can be messy, the buses can be
mhm.
messy, cafes, whatever it is. But when I open the door to my house, if I can walk in and breathe and just know that everything's in its place and I know where to find things, it's almost like this is my safe haven, this is my space. Is that what you find?
Yeah.
Is that why you do it? Is that, is there a story? Do you have a backstory that took you on that journey?
Yeah, yeah, I do. And I can relate so much to what you've just said about sort of having that time to actually do the organizing. It can be quite therapeutic and quite calming, can't it? So the reason I sort of started my business, I'll tell you a bit about that. So I used to work in event management, and that's what I'd sort of done since leaving university. And I enjoyed it because obviously I got to work with lots of people and I would be client facing. I did organize lots of weddings, and I loved that like rapport with the clients, and it was a beautiful thing. However, like with events, you're always sort of looking at this like risk management all of the time, like what could go wrong, and like weighing it all up all the time, which just really didn't suit my personality at all, and it would make me quite anxious. um I have a tendency to be anxious and an overthinker, so that sort of element of the job really sort of got to me. And then I carried on doing events throughout my career, and I'd moved into sort of a more senior position, managing a team of people in a different setting. And then after having my second child, I went back to that role, and I just wasn't coping at all. I think I would say now, like it was a complete and utter burnout, and all of these sort of like anxieties and worries, like thinking what could go wrong, just completely took over me. It was like all consuming, and I was in a really not a good place. At the same time, we were having a renovation in the house. We were getting the kitchen all knocked through, and we were actually staying back at my parents' house. So me with my partner and our two children living with my mum and dad back in the home where I grew up. And as I was having this sort of like complete burnout, staying there, I went back to what I always liked to do as a teenager, which was tidying up the kitchen and like clearing all of the kitchen cupboards out for my mum, because it's just not a priority for her. So I would like be pulling everything out, organizing it. And as I was sort of doing that, I realized that was the only time that I could really sort of quieten down these like thoughts of anxious and intrusive thoughts, really. That was the only thing that really gave me like a break from all of this overthinking. So I was just like, oh, well, maybe this is, I hadn't really realized at that point that home organizing was actually a profession. But I was like, well, this is nice. I'll carry on sort of doing this. And then I'd spoken with my partner, and he could see how like desperately unhappy I was. And it was obviously having a huge impact on our family and our relationship. And he said in the end, he just said, please leave that job, please leave. It's just not, it's not good. We'll work something out. Just do anything. So I was thinking like I'd probably want to work in the domestic area. So I was thinking I could set up a cleaning business, something along those lines, and see where that took me. And then it was one of these sort of chance things happened. in that my mum's friend was over from America visiting. And in America, home organizing is absolutely huge. You know, everybody knows about it. It's a very mainstream profession. And obviously in America as well, people have this sort of abundance of belongings. So it's more of an essential sort of service. So she was visiting, and I was telling her sort of about my situation and where I was. And she just said, you must set up a home organizing business. And I was like, oh, I didn't really know that was a thing. And as soon as she sort of said it, I was like, that is what I want to do. That would be my dream job. And from that moment, then it all just, you know, I just ran with it. So yeah, a brilliant sequence of events, really.
So I guess out of the stress and out of, you know, these things that happen in our lives, you turn a corner and you suddenly realize, wow, there is better stuff on the other side. Because obviously, you know, leaving that kind of environment, the job, you know, you've got financial, I guess, security. Then all of a sudden you haven't, but you've gone through that journey. And I think what is really important to identify is that a lot of us think that a lot of us feel that we're in this job and we have these burnouts, but actually if we move towards something that we love and we want to do, it's scary. It's scary to take that, you know, this was an idea that you didn't realize was an actual a job and a career that you could make out of it. And I think that's a massive thing, and you should be acknowledged for that, because it is very hard to sidestep into something completely new. You know, it's something that you love doing, but you didn't even know anything about it. Talk me through those emotions, because some women may well be thinking, oh, you know what, I am at burnout. I'm not happy in my job. You know, there is something I love doing. What would you say to somebody who's in that situation?
It honestly has been a lot. It started like this whole sequence of life-changing events for me. So I think if you're in a position that you can take that risk, it's to know that there's like, I think if we've been employed for all these years, like you've just said, it gives you that security, but it can be taking so much away from you as well. And I feel like when you sort of sometimes in these bigger organizations, you know, you've got all these restrictions on you, that it can be scary to leave and think, oh, well, what else is there? But I think if you feel passionate and that you've got a calling for something and a skill that you can offer to, you know, offer to other people, if you've got that chance, I would say go for it, because you can always go back. You know, you're always going to be able to find like another employed job. I've no doubt about that. So if you've got something that you really believe that people could benefit from, try and go for it.
I'm really interested to understand though, like when you transitioned over into this new path, how has this changed your life and what are you doing now?
There's a few things I need to bring into this. So through then the business, I offered a competition, and I feel like this is another one of those like random moments that have led me to where I am now. I organised a competition through my business to say someone can win an organising session with me. And the person who won that, her partner owns a gym, a local gym to me. So she'd sort of planted the seed about this fitness place. And at that point I said, oh, I'm not interested in exercise. It's so not for me. I was always really into going out, like partying, drinking, nice meals. Exercise was not on my radar. But then after that sort of meeting we were brought together through this competition that I'd run, something just sort of was like, maybe I should check that out. And I kept seeing like their social media. And somehow one day I just thought, right, I'm going to go to this gym. I'm going to give it a go. I'm not expecting anything. I'll probably hate it. But let's see what happens. And then like now, 2 years on, I'm absolutely obsessed with the gym. I'm there all the time. I actually support them organising their social events for the members. It's changed. That has changed my life as well. And through getting to the gym and understanding my body more and feeling better about myself, it's sort of given me like this new confidence, which then led me to stop drinking alcohol 13 months ago, which has been like, again, another massive life event. It's been a game changer for me. And also through the gym, I met my coach, Lisa, who has just been a wonderful support. She's also way into her sober journey. And through that, we've started our own podcast called Sober Freedom, all about, I did it sort of partly to keep me accountable in those early days, but also to just explore the topic more and to support other people. And then it became clear that all of these wonderful women who I'd met on this journey through the networking and supporting each other, they've all got brilliant stories to share and lots of like professional sort of insights on it as well. So they've all become guests on that podcast as well. So like I say, when it just all seems to be working out, like you don't know it at the time, you don't know why things are happening, but then suddenly it all becomes very obvious.
And I think that is so true with any change. And I think one of the biggest messages here is very, very similar. When we make a significant change in our lives, a choice for us, when we start looking at ourselves and we make that choice for us, we start making other choices for us. Like you made the choice to leave this job, burnout. What am I going to do? I'm going to take this chance. I'm going to make this change. Then you were more open to learning new things and to doing more things because you saw that change happening in such a positive way. So you went to the gym. Through the gym, there is another change. There's another chain reaction. So, we call it the ripple effect that happens. And I think that's so important and so valuable for everybody to understand. And, you don't really get it until you make these positive changes in your life, that the ripple effect does happen. And actually, to sit in a space where you're miserable, unhappy, burnt out, not doing what you feel fulfilled in life, not having a real purpose, you kind of just sit in that space and you don't see or hear the opportunities that are there. When you make that change, you make that transition and you see the massive shift that happens in that change, something happens to our brains and this window opens and it's like, oh, I'm so much more receptive to other things because if I've made this change and actually it's not as bad as I think it is, it's actually great, I'm much more willing to make other changes in my life. And I think we're scared to make changes because we're also scared about how other people are going to be affected around us if we make that change. What do you like? How do you feel? Like, how have the people around you taken to that change? Because you've obviously made a career change. You have started up a new hobby. You have now created a space for yourself where you're sober free. Was there any point in any of that the people around you, there were challenges there?
Do you know, to be honest, no, because it's all been, I guess I'm really fortunate to have a very supportive family around me. But, I think they've been happy for me because they could see like where I was, like when I was employed and, they could see how unhappy I was. And I think my mum used to kind of give me a hard time and it didn't feel helpful. But I think it's because she could see that I wasn't happy and she felt that I had more, more potential really in me than what I was actually doing. But yeah, I mean, I think, no, I've been really fortunate. Like they can see how happy I am, and we have to make it balanced. So sometimes my partner might say, "Oh, do you have to go to the gym in the morning?" Because I'll get up and go really early. But that's fair enough. And then we're getting better now at having a conversation to say, in the past, I might have been like, "Oh, it's not fair. He's sort of controlling what I do, and it's all for the good." But having used like the let them and theory and all of that, I'm getting a bit more reflective. And then, to be fair, he just wants a bit of a lie-in one day a week. It's fair enough. So it's balancing that.
Yeah. I just want to pick up on a couple of things that you've said. You went, I'm really fortunate. What I actually think the truth is that if we watch people from the outside make a change and suddenly they are happier, they are more fulfilled, that's what they're going to want from you. If they are, and when you say fortunate, I think, yes, you are fortunate, but I think that anybody that makes a change, if anyone can turn around and go, oh my God, that change is terrible, because why? Because you're more happy. That doesn't make sense. And this really messy, and this is what I'm trying to kind of really unpick a little bit here, is that if anybody does want to make a change, you're not fortunate. People are going to see how happy you are. That's going to have a knock-on effect on the way that you behave within your home environments, within your relationships. And surely you're a nicer person, better person, more fulfilled person to be around. And that's all anybody wants. If people love us, they just want us to be happy. So if they see you make this change, be it not drinking, be it going to the gym, and like you said, your husband, or sorry, your partner, and he has a lay-in now. You can still get up quietly and go off to the gym, and he has a lovely time in bed on his own for a few hours. So it's a win-win situation.
Usually he has to get up and do the kids' breakfast, to be fair.
Okay, well. Well, then if that's time he wouldn't necessarily have had with the kids on his own. So that's bonding time. There's all right, there you go. And this is it. It's like, why, like, let's not think that if we make this big change in our lives that we're scared of how other people are going to perceive us. If these people are around us that love us, and I'm going to bring this back to the fact that you declutter a house, because if people walk into a house and suddenly see it decluttered, how are they going to feel? So change, and I think this episode is about change. It's about how we can make positive changes in our lives, be it decluttering our houses, be it making a career move, be it going on a fitness journey, going on a sober-free journey, that nobody around us is going to see that it's a bad thing, because it's always going to reflect on how they feel. So people that come in, and my kids may moan at me, but I know that when my kids have been to other people's houses, they'll be, oh, how was it? It's not like this house. Why? Oh God, they're so messy. That's what they'll say to me. Oh, I couldn't live like that. I couldn't live like that. I don't want to stay there like that. Because they know that walking into an environment where you've got space, where you've got a place where everything goes, it's obviously not perfect in my house, but they can see the difference. And I think that the work that you're doing is really important, not just for the person that's decluttering, but for the household itself.
Definitely. And I think, that's a really big point to pick up on, is like this element of change. So when I meet my clients, obviously something's led them to that point of wanting to change, but it is scary. Like, you've got to invite someone into your home who you don't know. And I think with change, it's always like this fear, isn't it? Well, and we're so programmed to be like, fear the worst of what could possibly happen, rather than thinking of all the possibilities that it can open up for people. So yeah, like a lot of the time with my clients, for example, they are so overwhelmed and frustrated and ashamed of their homes that they might not even want to let people come around and visit, whether that be a friend, a family member, or a tradesperson. So some of, by getting to a point where they can actually take control of their home and start to feel better about themselves, then it opens up all of these opportunities as well, that they can have friends round, they can do home renovations that they couldn't do before. They have more time because they're not sort of getting dredged down with looking for items, moving items every time they want to maybe even make a meal. So like it has this snowball positive effect. And like you say, it just takes like that one change, which can then lead to so many more opportunities.
I just want you to give us one big take home that the listeners could could use in their lives, just one thing that I could go in my house now and I could think about whatever you're going to tell me to do. Like if I'm going to walk into my house, give me one take home that I could one action that I could do today walking in my house to help me declutter.
Okay, yeah. One action that's easy to implement, I would say, is have a bag or a box somewhere that you can start putting your donations to charity in. So whenever you're going around your house and you see something, or you've got an item of clothing that you think, oh, I don't like that, it doesn't fit me, whatever, you can just stick it into that bag. So, and then it's sort of like making you look out for those things, get them in there straight away. And when that bag is full, get it to the charity shop. Don't drive around with it in the car for 6 months.
If anybody has listened to this interview today and is literally thinking, I really want to make a change, but I'm worried how people are going to react and feel around that change. We need to ask ourselves, if I make that change, it's going to have a positive outcome for me and for people around me. Because I think often what we do is we sit back and we're scared to make a change because we're worried about what's going to happen after that. But why don't we ask ourselves, we don't first of all know how people are going to react to that change. But if the change is for a positive, I don't think people are going to react in a negative way, because positivity and people feeling happier about a situation and people seeing you feel happy and more content in an environment surely would have a knock-on effect on how you can influence somebody else to feel. So for me, change, like with any change that I've made that has been for the positive, everyone around me has experienced that change and it's had a complete ripple effect on their emotions, their behaviors, and also their belief systems as well. I am super excited for you guys to join me on my coaching episode, which is up next, because when you listen to this, I am taking you on a little bit of a journey to Spain. So I'm going to leave you there and you're going to catch me in Spain for my next episode of Real Women Stories.